into the unknown, into the unseen, the unexplainable, and the unbelievable. Join our strange journeys. Are you ready? Hey guys, we are back. Whoa, I'm getting a lot of noise. What's going on here? Okay, I'm Tom. I'm your ghost host. I don't know what's going on, but I'm getting a lot of noise.
You want me to mute?
Let's see. Yeah, what happened there? I was getting a lot of wind noise for some reason. Is there airplane taking off? That just happened. I'm Tom, your ghost host. This is Strange Journeys. Lynn happened to pop in just as the intro started. I don't know what's going on there. Well, that's a lot of noise. Got my beautiful wife Lynn down there and Jon and Andrea over there. We're going to be talking to them today about the Grave Hunter Society. And Lynn just got back from taking the youngest to McDonald's, the youngest grandson. So, all right. Are y'all ready to get started today? All right. Just remember that we offer these shows first and foremost for your entertainment. Those of you that are watching now and watching the playback later, we're not by any means and do not claim to be scholars or experts in any of the topics that we cover. We're simply enthusiasts and storytellers who like to have fun with these topics while respecting individual beliefs. And also remember that as we are a live stream, nothing is rehearsed, and I don't even go back and edit it out later. If you were watching the last show, there was 3 or 4 minutes. It was just silence because I don't know what happened. We just lost it there for a minute. All right, as we get into the show, ET Facts. We start off, Tim Shepard, who was with us last week, we're going to be talking about his show in just a minute here, put up the question, what's something that you've come across in your research that's interesting that people might not know about? But I kind of added a twist to it and said, what's a rabbit trail that you've encountered while researching one subject that just caught you off guard? Lynn, do you have anything you want to share there? Lynn, can you hear us? You're muted.
I was trying to find my unmute button.
Okay.
There was a lot of stuff about the fairies that I found interesting. To pinpoint one and say this is what caught my mind, I can't really do that.
Well, I was just talking about maybe a rabbit trail that you come across that you weren't expecting. Okay.
I didn't do the research. I just read and listened and ran my mouth.
All right, Jon, Andrea. Now I don't want you talking about stuff that we're going to be talking about later in the show.
Oh,
well, then we got nothing to say.
Oh, okay.
No. For me, a lot of times when I start doing like genealogy research, I will come across somebody that isn't even related. And then I will just start going through their family tree and their history. And I start telling him like it's my cousin that and I'm like, did you know, and it's completely unrelated to anything that I'm doing research on. But I can really get, I guess, nosy into just a random, like if we're out doing research and trying to find headstones, just a random headstone that's next to the person. Like, well, that person looks interesting. I wonder how they died and where they lived and who they knew. And so that's usually how I go with it. Like one of our main guys, I found out that his neighbor passed away from typhoid fever. He was a 23-year-old NCR worker, was newly married, died in his home that still lived in and rented out today in Dayton. So, it's just one thing after another for me.
For us, that question is more, what's not a rabbit trail?
Yeah.
We have to draw a line somewhere. She'll send me all kinds of information about people, and I'll file it as we'll get to this eventually.
Well, when I was training the tour guides back when in that other company, we'll talk about it. That's where I met Andrea, and I would tell them, focus on the tour, focus on the items that you're talking about there. You're going to hit rabbit trails in your research, and just file them away for later. And then you can come back and spend all the time you want on it. But in my research for that tour, there were, and without giving it away, I'm going to say there was one subject that to me was taboo. Because in that company, for some reason, they wanted to add this subject to every single tour, no matter where it was located. And I just refused to have that story on our tour. Until one night on tour, somebody asked Lynn why we hadn't talked about this subject. And you'll see what I'm talking about here in a second.
I think I know what we think we know.
Have you figured it out?
I think so.
There was this young lady in Mobile, Alabama. Her name was Florence Elizabeth Chandler. She was born in 1862. Her father was a former mayor of Mobile and a banker in Mobile, had passed away, and her mother remarried some kind of German soldier or something, a cavalry officer in the German army. So they hop a ship to travel to England. On the way, Florrie, as they called her, meets this man named James Maybrick. She's 18, he's 42. Well, they hit it off, and by the time they get to England, he has proposed, and here's Florrie. He has proposed, and they get married soon after. This was where Florrie was raised, on the main street in Mobile, Alabama. Wouldn't you like to live in that house?
Seriously.
It's a parking lot now.
It literally is a parking lot. It's sickening. There is a piece. There's like a 4 or 5 foot section of one of those columns left on the sidewalk there, and that's all that's left of the building. Well, anyway, here's James. By the time they got to England, like I said, he had proposed. They got married in Liverpool sometime after. It turned out to be a rocky and tumultuous thing. There were infidelities on both sides. And after a few years, James Maybrick ends up dead. They say it's from arsenic poisoning. And Florrie is accused of his murder. She is tried and sentenced to hang. She was actually the very first American to ever be sentenced to the gallows in England. And needless to say, she didn't go there. I mean, she didn't go. They finally rescinded that sentence and sent her to a prison for life, which supposedly they looked at the case again and released her after 14 years. But she was never able to regain. I mean, she was a Southern belle from the word go, and used to the high life. And by the time She got out of prison. She had nothing, moved back to the States, and died alone with her cats in a little house in Connecticut. Now, interesting thing about that, the only thing in her belongings was an old family Bible, and found inside the pages was a recipe for removing arsenic from flypaper. She declared her innocence all the way to the end. But in re-looking at the case over the years, they find out he didn't have enough arsenic in his system to kill him, so they're not really sure. I'm getting that wind noise again. What's going on? Anyway. Oh, it's you guys. Oh, no. All right. Well, anyway, here's the unique thing. That story is interesting in itself, and she died alone and broke. But it turns out that her husband, James Maybrick, was one of the top, I'm going to show you something, the top suspects thought to be Jack the Ripper. And this is if you see the screen there, this is a list of Jack the Ripper suspects. And there's Mr. Maybrick right there in the midst of them all. And that's the story that I wouldn't have anything to do with on our tours, because every tour in the company had a Jack the Ripper story, and I wouldn't do it. I said, I'm not doing a Jack the Ripper story. And then a Jack the Ripper story gets laid in my lap. It was a connection to Mobile, and a little Mobile girl may have been the one that took out Jack the Ripper. Who knew? But that's my rabbit trail story, because I wasn't researching Jack the Ripper at all.
Yeah, the guy that asked me about it said that some of the bricks from her house was his driveway. He had a brick driveway, and some of those bricks were some of the ones from her house.
And he was like, why don't y'all talk about this? And I said, I'm not talking about Jack the Ripper. But I did then. I
Once
went
you had
back.
something to say.
We took Jack the Ripper out of ours also, because it was a kind of a.
It was a stretch.
Yeah. It was kind of hokey, and so I wanted to make it more personal.
Well, that's like the Lizzie Borden story. I know in Washington they had a Lizzie Borden story on the tour there, because they passed an antique store that sold antique beds like the one her father's body was found on. What kind of connection? I thought, no. Speaking of Lizzie Borden, I just thought about this. In a few months, I think it's in May, I'd have to go back and check the calendar, but we have a woman who was the house psychic for the Lizzie Borden Bed and Breakfast. She was the house psychic for 10 years. She's going to be our special guest, and we'll have a Lizzie Borden show. Nothing but Lizzie Borden with the woman that was house psychic there for 10 years. That's coming up in a few months.
What she has to say.
Oh, yeah. I just finished her book.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, she goes through the actual murder and what, events leading up to it and after it. And then she also includes throughout the book things that they've experienced investigating there. So that's really unique. All right, guys, as we head into the show, we want you to remember, if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe and sign up for notifications. And if you can help us out on Patreon, we would certainly appreciate it. All right, and if you can go to our Strange Journeys Live, you can get the Patreon there. There's a link over on the side that you'll see that P, the pink Patreon P, and click on that. You can help us out for as little as $3 a month, and every little bit helps. We want to keep doing this, folks. My renewal for StreamYard comes up next month, and we just have to make a decision if we're going to keep doing this this way or not. We're not sure yet, but we'll see, and we will let you know. Just go to strangejourneys.live if you're there also. Click on the Strange Journeys merch, and it'll take you to all of our stuff there. And remember, if you go to our merch page, and you can get 15% off of everything in the store by using SJ15. But remember, if you're watching, remember what we call you? You are the watchers. And we got some shirts over there. Oh, that cut out a lot of the sound, whatever happened just then. I don't know what that was. But you are the watchers, and we appreciate you watching. So go over there and check that out. Let me get rid of this and get back over here. All right. On our last show, we had E.T. Tim Shepard with Prairie Ghost and Return to the Prairie. And any feedback, Lynn? Anything you remember from that show that stuck out to you? You're muted again.
Yeah, I know. I was trying to find it.
We've been doing this almost a year now, so you should.
Yeah, I'm trying. I don't like your mouse. Now he's had a lot of interesting stuff to say. Like I said, to put my finger on one thing and say this is what caught my mind, my attention. I really can't do that, but it really was an interesting show, and anybody that hadn't seen it needs to go back and watch it.
Yeah, Tim has a ton of stories. I mean, he's probably can put out a third book, which he's working on his third book now, but it's the Quetzal Raiders. But one story that I just think is amazing. I love all the stories, but the Stoll, Kansas story, where this anthropologist, I think it was back in the I can't even remember now when it was. This anthropologist wrote this article citing supposedly some articles from the 50s that turned out to be erroneous, saying that the devil would show up in Stoll, Kansas every October 31st on Halloween. And he presented it in such a way that it was factual. And so people started showing up there every year, but it turns out it was just an anthropological experiment. None of that was true. So, and the fact that people keep showing up, I'm still getting a lot of noise. Guys, is there?
Sorry. We're thinking it might be the other computer's fan. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Well, well, we can't keep you muted. Okay. All right. But anyway, if you haven't seen that show, go back and watch it. And guys, it's time for the strange sightings. This week's strange sightings. Let me see what y'all think about this. Okay, what do you think? Is that somebody's little play toy? Yeah, just
That's what I
going through
thought
the
at
water.
first. But then the legs was moving.
Yeah. Some unknown cryptid at this point. Hey, let's do it this way. Turn the volume down. Let me skip ahead to the actual. Yeah, this guy posted it. There's no description, nothing but the title, no date, no details, no nothing about where or what this might be. But it seems to be coming out from under that big rock.
Great. Now I'm going to have to get one for Andrea.
I want one. It's so cute.
It might get big.
Yeah, they might grow.
That's
Looks like
okay.
its mouth is open.
I'll get a leash for it. It's so cute.
I mean, it does look like the legs. I mean, who knows?
It looks like the little dragon that was on Mulan, the cartoon. The Eddie Murphy dragon.
Yeah.
It's about the same size.
What do you think? I mean, could that be real?
Plastic would not do that. It would have to be, if it's a toy, it has to be something other than plastic, because it wouldn't just wiggle if you pulled the string. It wouldn't wiggle its legs and its back end and that kind of stuff.
I really want it to be real because I really want one. But
I don't think it's something physical for sure. It could be CGI, some computer graphics. It's fairly sophisticated if it is, but the lighting around the head seems a little bit.
it is brighter.
Possibly inconsistent with the way that something like that would look. It
Could be at an angle, like how it swims.
So I've seen quite a few snakes in the water that you would expect to move around that same way.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
typically,
yeah, I could see that.
I mean, so where you have it paused right now, of course, I'm pointing at the screen like where I'm pointing. Right over here.
Yeah.
The head seems a little bit more separated from the background. And I mean, that could be happening in real life, but one of the best ways to probably do this would be to look at the actual reflections in the wavelets as they come over. You would expect them to be reflecting a little bit of the yellow from the creature. Either way, if it is
He has a
CGI,
background in graphic design.
if it is CGI, it's really well done. It's not poorly done at all.
I'm convinced. Like I said, I want it to be real because I want one now. I'm going to go to every pet store. Be like, do you have a yellow dragon?
Yeah.
I have to find the video now and contact them and ask how much they want.
Yeah.
Did you catch it?
Yeah. Cool. Right. But like I said, it's unusual to me in that they put nothing on it, no descriptors at all. There was nothing on the description about when the video was shot, what they thought it might be, anything like that. And it only had 15 views when I found it.
That's odd.
A video like that you would think would be going viral in no time. So
Well, it could be that some kid had found it or whatever and videoed it and put it up on YouTube, and it had just gone up when you found it.
I've been up there since March 25th. So what's that, a week?
Yeah.
Almost. So anyway, that one just going into the Strange Sightings files. Remember that Strange Sightings files are only available on Patreon after the show. I upload them there. So if you want to see all of our other Strange Sightings files videos, they are on Patreon. And you can join for as little as $3 a month. Well, guys, we had set aside a day to talk about Jon and Andrea's Grave Hunter Society. So let's dive on into that. And yes, we are talking today about the Grave Hunter Society. You like your little intro?
I do. Can we use it on our website? Seriously, I was
Um,
telling him, I was like, you've got you're talented. You got a gift. You can really put those together. They're awesome.
Well, thank you. Christine's with us. Hey, Christine.
Hey.
Hi.
All right. Well, before we get into talking about the Grave Hunter Society, we'll give you a little synopsis right here. All right. The Grave Hunter Society was established in 2020 by Andrea and Jonathan Batteas after years of specialized experience in freelance historical research. They needed a place to bring together the different facets of their love of the exploration into the intriguing and unknown. And you can find all the information about them at gravehuntersociety.com. All right. I'm still getting noise. It comes and goes. I don't know that's weird. That's strange. I don't know what's up with that. Let's see here. All right. Andrea grew up with a love. I'm reading this from their website, folks. This is what they got on their website. Andrea grew up with a love for all things old and vintage, especially if it had a story attached to it. That love eventually became a passion that led her to volunteer for several local historical societies. There, she was able to learn and research about the day-to-day lives of those from our past. Andrea broadened her research abilities in 2014 when she was asked by a nationwide tour company to write and run a walking haunted history tour for the city of Dayton, Ohio. After the success of those tours, she went on to research and facilitate tours in cooperation with Ghost Hunting Source and Miami Valley Paranormal Services and locations in Springfield, Ohio, including the Robertson Building and the State Theater. It was through these tours that her love of urban exploration and investigation into the long-forgotten buildings of the past began to take shape. The tours allowed her to become acquainted with paranormal spirit encounter investigations, which Al has been on the show before, and he may show up. He usually just pops in every now and then, so hopefully he'll show up here in a minute. I'm getting him back to the show in a few months to talk about some more ghost hunting stuff. Okay, Andrea completed in-depth research for the team for many locations that included difficult-to-find information, such as original landowners, deaths on the owner near the property, county histories, and individual biographical sketches. With the gift of discernment and intuition, she has the uncanny sense of knowing just where to look for information. She continues her research into anything interesting that comes across her desk. And Jonathan fell in love with research at a young age when he was told the story of a family treasure buried away in the distant past. This began his voracious appetite for maps of all kinds. As he grew older and started to integrate new technologies into his research and saw an explosion in information he was able to find, he consistently uses his expertise as a software and research engineer for the University of Dayton Research Institute to create custom tools and processes to increase his efficiency as a fact finder. From geographical information systems, or GIS, digital forensics and image analysis, optical character recognition, OCR, text extraction, and sentiment analysis to bulk data acquisition and automated analysis. How do you say all that? Jonathan applies computerized techniques to be as thorough and accurate as possible in his findings. And Jonathan, I'm just going to venture out and say Andrea wrote that for you, didn't she?
Yeah, she did. I had to ask her what it all meant.
I'm sure. Basically, it's saying you guys are qualified for what you're doing. And that's what it's all about. And I met Andrea through this former national tour company that we've mentioned on the show a couple of times. And she was leading a tour in Dayton. I was leading the tour in Mobile. And we both eventually kind of moved up in the company, I guess you'd say. That's what I was picking at Tim about last week. I was like, what happened to you? You just stayed in Topeka and kept doing your tours. Well, we just went on to bigger and brighter things with the company. So that's where we met, and she was teamed with Debbie Standifer, and they made a dynamic duo. Those tours, they had. It's amazing. I've stayed friends with some of the folks who had some of the most popular and busiest tours in that company, and like I said, we're still friends to this day. And I know she used her research there. She even helped me at times to train other tour guides. But she was also, weren't you kind of a regional manager of sorts? I know you did the company newsletter.
I did the company newsletter. I was offered regional manager, but at the time, because I was balancing the two tours, the newsletter, and helping training, I said, you have to pass that to somebody else.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't.
Okay. All right. So just give us a little bit on what prompted you guys doing the Grave Hunter Society.
Well, it had kind of been bubbling in the background for a while, since it's everything that we, enjoy doing. We ended up doing this kind of stuff in our downtime anyway. And then I guess technically it was COVID and all of the lockdowns that came into place.
Right.
And I was saying, we have all this time on our hands now. What better to do with it than to start researching some of these things that had come to us in the past.
Right.
And Andrea already had a few things kind of laying in the background that she had just happened upon in our everyday, excursions. Like
You can't see it that well. I'll try to take a picture of it and post it for later.
German baptismal that she found tucked away in a corner in an old antique store.
On my birthday.
On her birthday.
Big 4-0.
And just kind of how that one piece led to, the first 3 or 4 things that we really started investigating. I'll let you talk about it if you want to.
So I was kind of telling Tom about it before the show started. It was my birthday. He took me out and he's like, what do you want to do? And I was like, let's go antiquing, because I'm a girl and I like that stuff. And so since he's a great husband, he took me. And we were in the back of this antique store where there's kind of like a warehouse where they take a bunch of houses that are being torn down in the greater Dayton area, and they try to reclaim bits and pieces of it. You can go buy a staircase, that's 100 years old. So in the corner of the store were just pallets and broken mirrors and empty frames and torn pictures. And for whatever reason, I wanted to go through that. Like, that's what piqued my interest in this whole awesome warehouse. And I come across this. And the first thing that stood out to me was that it was clearly a baby's, that this was somebody's baby a long time ago. And I'm a mommy. And so I was drawn to it. And it was in German, and I have a strong German bloodline heritage.
Okay.
I couldn't read it, but what sold me on it was the little boy, his name, or the child, was Hermann Gustav Adolf Dürer. And he was born on September 9th, 1897 in Dayton, Ohio. And my mom was born on December 9th, 19 something in Dayton, Ohio. Mom, if you're watching, that was for you. So immediately I had to have it, and it didn't have a price tag on it, which means it was kind of not really for sale yet. And I told John, I said, well, maybe I'll offer 5. And technically the cashier is not allowed to barter. She technically is supposed to keep things that are not priced and say, just call back and we'll see if we can sell it to you later. And she said, 5 sounds great. Happy birthday. And I got my baptismal certificate, and that started a journey of posting the best I could get of pictures and things like that, and trying to get somebody to help me, looking into books to help translate it, to find out exactly what it is. And not only did we find out that it was a baptismal, who his parents were, but we also found where he was buried.
Wow.
And that he's a World War II veteran, and that his grave is not recognized for that. And that's something that we are currently in the process of doing for him.
Cool.
So I got really attached. So that's how things start.
Excellent. We just had one of our regular viewers show up. Greg. Hey, Greg. He says, hello, everyone. I hope you have plans to keep the show on. Well, we're planning on it, Greg. I thank you. And Jon and Andrea, I don't know if you realize this, but he's kind of a neighbor. We found out in our Bridges of Sorrows show that he's from Cleveland.
Cool.
So there you go, Greg. All right, Greg, hang around. We got some stories from these guys coming up. So they're going to tell us about some of the stuff they've come across. I just want to say I'm going to try something today after the show. Never done this before, but I was just looking around on our Facebook group the other day, Strange Friends, and they do these rooms that's like a video chat. So after the show, whoever's available, we're going to open up a room for all the strange friends, and we're going to rehash the show today.
Okay.
And see if anybody has any questions, comments, and things like that.
Yes,
and,
I do.
Yeah. Well, you can ask them here. and like Greg, if you have any comments, please comment while we're going on the show. Type them in there and let us know you're watching, and let us know where you're watching from. We want to know where you're where you're at. Like I said, we gave a shout out to Greg. He's from Cleveland. All right. Where did the name the Grave Hunter Society come from? How did you come up with that?
Our kids, they named us. So going from Herman Deer, that started, that was in October of 2019. Comes 2020, we're now in the lockdown. And you're allowed to go outside for nature walks, and that's about it. And so a lot of people like geocaching. Our family likes to go gravestone hunting. So we go on Find a Grave and look for local graveyards and request for those graveyards for photographs of loved ones. And we'll go searching. And we found Herman Deer's uncle, Charles Deer, who actually was a Dayton's 1893 murder sensation. His story is a really sad one. It doesn't have a happy ending, really. But he had a headstone request, and that kind of started it. He's in a very old part of Woodland Cemetery in Arboretum, which is located in downtown Dayton. The Wright brothers, Orville and Wilbur Wright, and their sister and father and mother are buried there also. Wow. And he's in the original part, which in the 50s and 60s, Dayton didn't really take care, Woodland Cemetery didn't really take care of their grounds very well. And some of them were washed or knocked over, vandalized. And Charles headstone was one of them. So it took a lot of extensive research and a lot of time to find his headstone and exhume it and clean it off. And by the time we were done, we were just on cloud nine with this. And the kids were really involved. I mean, they were there. They were with us every step of the way. They were very patient, and they loved it. And we said, we should do this all the time, but we need a name. And they came up with the Grave Hunter Society. They named us. So that's how we got the name. Long story. Sorry.
Yeah, well, I mean, it has a Victorian slant to it with the society stuck on there, you know. And so, I mean, my first thought was Victorian, you know. Then you got the grill work on your logo and all. It's kind of a Victorian vibe to it.
For me, they brought up the name, and immediately I'm thinking visually, and so I thought, oh, hunters, okay, I can turn the U upside down, make that a headstone, and we're good to go. We're golden.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
I was like, well, that'll work. We have to stick with that. You know?
That's cool. I didn't, I didn't load. I got the logo up there in the top right-hand corner, but I forgot to load it in as an overlay. So, okay.
It's okay. It's kind of overlaid up there.
Yeah, it's up there. What are some of the, just give me an overview of what are some of the different things you do in the Grave Hunter Society?
You talk about that.
Well, some of the things, so we'll split this one down because it's actually, we share a lot of the responsibilities, but then we each have like our own niches in this. Genealogy and ancestry research. We love to do home and location research, finding basically the ancestry of your house and who lived there. It can answer a lot of questions, and it can kind of make it feel even more homey. And we also do unknown antiques and
There it is.
knickknacks, where people aren't really sure what something is, what it's used for, and we'll try to sometimes hunt that down for them. We also do a little bit of paranormal investigation, where we get a lot of videos and recordings, and we will process those through analytics, and that's really where he comes in. And we don't want to say that we're debunkers. We don't want to. But our desire is to be able to come up with a rational reason for them, something that will bring them more of a peace of mind. Because I've noticed that a lot of times with like paranormal investigation, people will go into a home, stir everything up, do some research that it sounds kind of spooky on a house, and then leaves the family to live there for the rest of their life, or they can move. And so, we want to kind of bring a peace of mind and reassurance that, it could be residual energy. It could be, I don't necessarily have I'm trying to think of the right word, there's been times where we've kind of said, this could be, a poltergeist, or it could be demonic, I mean, we're able to kind of rule some of the things out for people.
Right.
So I know in the past, we've done a lot of the historical research for paranormal groups before they go into places. That gives them a good place to start, a good place to look. Understanding the history of a place at least helps them to understand what kind of things they might be looking for. I know for us, we tend to collect data about, even when people send us videos and things like that, what we like to do is just get a clear picture of what do all of the signs indicate we're seeing in this picture.
Right.
Something that we can explain, or is it something that we can't explain? And if it's something we can't explain, we don't come down definitively on it and say, okay, this is definitely a ghost. We we say, okay, here's everything we looked at, and we don't have an easy answer for it. This might be something. And so that's where we come down as far as that goes.
Yeah, there's a podcast that I listened to, and I mentioned it on the show before. They were investigating the Sally House in Atchison, Kansas, and they got this EVP. And on one episode of their investigation, they've been talking to different experts about the EVP, and it was just unique to hear the scientific side of things, of that EVP being analyzed. Well, you were saying that on the video, did you want to share that video now?
Yeah, so we can do that. One of the things we do is we do take a look at videos. People send us things, or sometimes we find things on social media that are asking for help.
Right.
And if something jumps straight out to us, then we like to take a look at it. For instance,
This
one
was
of these here, we
actually in Cleveland.
Yes, we actually have this video in Cleveland where this woman walks out, and as you can see, she comes to the door, and then a few minutes after she leaves,
You'll see a figure
you see
in the door.
this door here.
Is it gonna play?
It does. It's playing. It just goes slowly. You see it move off screen like this.
Yeah, you see somebody walk by.
And of course,
That's what it looks like.
that's very creepy.
And they were
to see
scared to
that.
death. They were terrified.
But if you look at this reflection that I have blown up here, and you notice that it is synchronized with what's going on here, you can see that there's actually a chain link fence with what looks like a towel or a sheet laying over it, and that is reflecting into the other doorway, so that as they move, they're both moving at the same time and in synchrony, so that they come off screen. So really what you're seeing is not an entity moving off screen. It's the reflection of that towel over the chain link fence. And it's just little things like that that you miss unless you go frame by frame over each one of these things, and you start in the upper left-hand corner and look all the way down at all the reflections.
Right.
And you can scrub back and forth on the video, and those things really help to kind of bring clarity to some of these things.
So in the middle there, you had a blow up of a window that was on the left, right?
That's correct.
In the reflection in that.
Yep.
I thought that was just CSI, where they looked into the eyeballs and got a reflection and identified somebody.
No, I mean, it's not quite like CSI, but there's some similarities. Some of the other things we do, of course, is we do the analysis of imagery. So we can look at what's called the EXIF data, or the metadata that's associated with images. We can also look at, I don't want to get super technical, but some people might find it interesting, with JPEGs, which most images that cameras create are JPEGs. There are different compression algorithms that they use to create those JPEGs, and it leaves a fingerprint in those JPEGs that are called quantization tables. And certain quantization tables match different manufacturers. And so if you have somebody who comes in and says, hey, I took this with my Fujifilm X11 camera or whatever, and you can look at that JPEG and the quantization table is different, then you can know right off the bat that it's been edited at some point. It's not a known table. And so little things like that, where you can look into images, you can say, okay, well, I can't say 100% that this is authentic, but at the same time, if you go, hey, look, everything matches up the way it should, then that's helpful.
Most of us will never even know stuff like that, John. I mean,
well, this is, and then we create full forensic reports of that with chain of custody of the digital, and create a report of everything that's found.
Wow.
One of the other things that we're kind of venturing into, so as the Grave Hunter Society, we find headstones. That's primarily where our interest lies, is in finding headstones.
We really recovering them.
Yeah, and if you look at here, I'm going to
cleaning them, just making them look nice again.
We had talked about Charles Durr as one of the headstones, and as you can see, we found his headstone. It was actually under about 6 inches of dirt in a section of the cemetery that is, 100 years old. Who knows?
What made you think to dig down 6 inches?
Yeah. Yep. We had to we
really had to look for
we
him.
had to look for the plot. We had to
Section number, plot number,
yeah, and
his
the-
neighbor.
Oh, okay.
We couldn't.
Of course, there were no headstones up,
No.
so we just had to kind of guess.
Oh.
And then probe a little bit here and there until we found it. And we
Cool.
found the headstone, pulled it up, took images of it, and so that's him. That's Carl. That's Charles Durr. And as you can see here, this is something that we wouldn't have known had we not found it. So in the obituary and in all of the newspaper articles, they called him Charles Durr or Carl Durr, but they spelled it with a C. And here it's spelled with a K, the more Germanic way of spelling the name. But
Right.
His whole headstone's German.
Yeah, so
even his death and birth with its Keb incest. So
Yeah.
it's they were very, very German.
Yeah.